Hi, Andy. How's it going?
Hey, how are you, Erin?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So it's Friday. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about protein today. So I'm excited. So
Yeah, I'm excited too. Protein's such an interesting topic because I think people tend to sometimes people think they already know everything there is to know and they think they've got it really dialed in and they're almost boring. But then there's also a lot of like controversies around protein, I find.
yeah, I was going to say I think of like you think of big muscles a lot of times with protein. That's a misnomer that if I ask people say
Oh,
what if I say protein, what comes to mind? They'll
big
say
muscles.
big muscles. Um, I even had a client that started with us several months ago. When she began, she said, "Don't I just need to eat a bunch of protein?" And I said, if it were only that simple, right? We could just all eat protein
Yeah,
and be healthy
that
and
would be
forget everything
amazing.
else, be nice and lean. So, but I think this is awesome. This is a great way for you to educate all of us from the nutrition side. I think a lot of people know what protein does on the exercise side. It's vital for us to build muscle, but why
Yeah,
that's important for things like controlling our weight.
yeah,
Or overall our health goals, so
yeah,
that's why a lot of times we like to focus, as you do, on the body composition versus the weight, because we know that
yeah,
you know the leaner you are, there's no studies out there that say, well, being incredibly lean but being this weight makes you unhealthy. It's really based on what's the word I'm looking for here? What's the substance of your weight? I guess is the best way to
yeah,
look at it. So
yeah, for
I'm going
sure.
to let you dive in. Let's start off with let's talk about that for a moment. How weight relates to our metabolism.
Yeah. So, in terms of how your weight relates to your metabolism, what I would say is that, so like, for example, in our clinic, we do metabolic testing. So, you can come in and actually have your metabolic rate measured. So, you know exactly how many calories you would burn if you just laid in bed all day. And then obviously, your activity level alters your total calorie needs. But, it's totally normal for us to have two different people that are the same size with dramatically different metabolic rates. So maybe one person will burn 1,700 calories a day at rest, and another person might burn 2,200. And a lot of that has there's a few things that go into that, but a big part of that is how much lean mass you have versus muscle. So that person that's burning more calories every day probably has more muscle and less body fat versus the other person, probably the opposite. And then another thing that I'll see a lot is that people have been under eating and over dieting and overly restricting. And then that does actually slow your metabolic rate over time. Your body has sort of a protective mechanism against starvation that'll slow your metabolic rate. And so you can have, again, so two people are the same size, but one person will have a slower metabolism than the other person because of that.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's tie protein into that now, and how we take this. Let's say a person that is going on a weight loss journey or just starting. How are we gonna, as far as gauge their protein intake? How does protein affect their weight loss?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's a really good question. What I think a lot of people maybe haven't really been taught or made help to understand is that there's a lot of research on protein needs in weight loss and what happens with weight loss depending on what your protein intake is. So basically if you're under eating on protein while you're losing weight, what your body is going to do is it's going to draw on amino acids from your muscles to try to make up for that protein deficit. And so you'll be losing a lot more muscle at, say, you lose 5 pounds, but you're under eating on protein, then it could be literally 3 pounds of muscle that you've lost out of those five and only 2 pounds of fat. So as soon as you stop that restrictive diet, you're now going to gain that weight back and more probably because you've lowered your metabolic rate by losing muscle. Whereas if you have sufficient protein in your diet while you lose weight, you'll lose a significantly less muscle. It's still not zero, but it maybe instead of 3 pounds, it's like half a pound. Um, not exact numbers for every person, but that's kind of the scale of it. And so it's critical to have enough protein during weight loss. But what I see happen, unfortunately, a lot of times is that people will try to eat. They're like, hey, I want to lose weight, so I'll just stop eating. I'll eat less of the same food that I already eat. So I'll eat the same type of food, just less of it, or I'll start skipping breakfast, but not change the other meals that I eat. And that usually will, when you shrink your whole diet, every part of it shrinks. And so you're shrinking your protein intake in a time when you need to be increasing your protein intake. So what needs to happen in weight loss is that pie chart of your macronutrients needs to shift to where the meals become more high in protein and the overall protein intake increases while the calories decrease.
I like that. That's so, and it's interesting how you say it's counter. It's almost you almost sabotage your own weight loss by
Yeah,
you're losing weight, but you don't understand that the weight you're losing is not the weight you want to lose because the our
yep.
metabolism burns by far more calories than we could ever burn like in a day unless you wanted to
With
spend when I tell
exercise.
people
Yeah.
you would have to spend literally 4 to 5
Yeah.
hours exercising at a very high level. I mean, you know, the average male, as far as what's the average metabolic rate for a male, about 16 to 1800
Yeah. Like at
per day.
rest.
I
Yeah.
mean, on a very to give you put that in perspective, when I do a very hard workout and I'm well conditioned, that lasts about an hour and a half, I still only burn about six, maybe 700 calories.
Yeah.
So that would be a 4.5 hours of working out, and I think people don't understand that it's also more efficient. Just let your body just burn and control the weight while you're at rest.
Yeah.
So,
Even if you tried to make up for a low metabolic rate with exercise, you can be fighting yourself. Aside from just how much time and effort that takes,
right.
you have like a hormonal response to overexercise that can harm your weight loss efforts. You'll have more cortisol, for example. You'll have that decrease of your thyroid hormone and your thyroid function. And so, yeah, just to be like a cardio bunny and to try to out exercise a bad diet, like never works in the long run.
Right. Amen to that. So,
Yeah.
uh, let's talk about how much protein intake people get.
Sure.
I'm sure, well, seeing that most of America doesn't eat healthy and is usually deficient in certain things, is it true for protein as well?
That's such a good question because the party line you'll often hear in like conventional nutrition settings is that they'll say that protein is actually what Americans are doing well. They'll
Oh,
say that
cool. I didn't know that.
Americans,
So,
yeah,
interesting. That's cool.
they'll say, hey, Americans are meeting their protein needs and they're good on that. But what's important to understand is that they're basing that off the dietary guidelines that have flaws and are somewhat outdated with respect to the research. And when it comes to protein, what they're going off of is the guideline is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which has been shown in quite a lot of research it to be too low for even a sedentary adult, let alone for an active adult. And so when they say, hey, we have this like national data of like they do these NHANES studies that survey like thousands and thousands of Americans, and then they extrapolate that from how does America eat, and then they make claims from that. So basically, from that NHANES data, they're saying, okay, yeah, it looks like people are meeting that 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram. But then, first of all, that's too low. Second of all, they're encouraging exercise, so it's even more too low. And so that's one problem, is that actually it tends to be that many Americans are low. So, because that's the other thing is like that's just an average, right? So if you have an
Mhm.
average of everybody's right at the need, then you could have half the people too low and half the people too high, and the average would look okay. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Point
a
eight.
lot of
Yeah,
people,
that's really nothing. I mean, um,
yeah.
I'm curious, what is a good baseline for an individual that's active? Because I agree with you, we shouldn't be encouraging, oh, just don't move, stay sedentary. We should
Yeah.
be encouraging, you know, exercise 3 to 5 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah. And another kind of problem with current intakes is that nutrition there's trends, right? So like there was the era where all fat was the enemy and Snackwell cookies were like perfect because they were like
Right.
low fat,
Right.
right? We've moved past that now, but we're really in an era where like protein is vilified and in certain ways in certain circles, and that's a pretty prevalent thing in like current nutrition trends. So I find that more and more and more I'm seeing people who are coming in like extremely low on their protein intake because they've either been convinced that like most types of protein are bad, or they've been lied to about how much protein is in some for certain like vegetarian foods, or they've even been convinced possibly that all protein is bad for you because protein stimulates what's called the mTOR pathway, and the mTOR pathway is something that's like associated with aging. And so there's a whole world of these like aging medicine people that will tell you to eat like very low protein. So there's just a lot of like
That
misinformation.
sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, and I know you're in our phase 2 Lean for Life we're doing right now, where we talk a lot about aging and nutrition and like what that looks like. And there is certainly a lot of research on fasting and time restricted feeding as being beneficial. And like part of that is that you have a period of time where you do stop stimulating that mTOR pathway, and then you can leverage other like physiological benefits of fasting. But that's very distinct from just a chronically, what I'm seeing more is just a chronically low protein diet. And when I say low, it's like it won't be uncommon for people to be coming in and eating only 20 grams a day of protein, when like the very absolute floor of like an itty bitty grandma would be like 65 grams for me.
gotcha.
So it's like you're a vital young 25-year-old woman who works out and you're eating a third of what a grandma should be eating on your protein. Yeah.
Is that one of the biggest mistakes? What are some of the common mistakes you see as far as the protein intake? Um,
I think that coming in low or not focusing on quality, so or being confused on quality. So like one big one right now is like vegetarian fake meat is horrible for you. I'll just say that it's usually made out of vegetable oils, gluten, and soy protein isolate, which is
Talking about like tempeh and things like that.
tempeh is actually whole bean soy, and
Okay.
that's not associated with health problems. But when they isolate the protein out of soybeans and put it into a processed food like a fake burger patty, that's definitely associated with breast
Yeah.
cancer.
Well, no, what's the one I'm thinking of? It looks like bacon. There's one that it looks like.
Oh, tofu. Well, like tofu or tempeh, is that you're not talking about that? You're talking about like a fake, like a
Yeah, it's meant to simulate like,
Beyond Burger.
yeah, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So
Yeah, there's a bunch of different brands trying to do that and like kind of ride off of the vegan trend. And what they're making is complete processed junk, where as opposed to like if you get a good quality burger out of like grass-fed ground beef, it's like nature's multivitamin. There's tons of vitamins and minerals in that, and then of course the quality protein as well.
I want you to go ahead and I'm gonna let you touch base on that some more. I think there's that's a huge area of when we're talking about quality of the protein,
Yeah.
bioavailability of the protein. Like the other day, I seen it. It was a post on Facebook said something about broccoli. So many grams of broccoli has more protein than a steak, and it's like such a terrible analogy and
Yeah.
comparison. Let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about how the absorption of plant protein versus like from meat. Will you touch base
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the protein is so much less absorbable, but what I would say is that there's very little protein in plants. So like that's a common trick you'll see in like vegan type of channels and videos and things, is they'll say you don't need to eat meat. There's protein in spinach. So just eat spinach. But what they're not really sharing, and maybe they haven't figured out, is that you would have to eat, like I did at one point, calculate how much spinach I would have to eat to meet my protein needs, and it was like a 5-gallon bucket of
Had a
spinach.
girl. I could see you
Like
walking in high
Popeye over here.
pies,
Heck yeah.
like it's like
Yeah.
coming to work with my 5-gallon buckets of spinach.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you would just probably die from like the oxalates in that. I mean, it's just like
Oh,
ridiculous to think that you could get all the protein you need from vegetables. And super pro vegetable. I have people eat 4 to 6 cups a day of vegetables, but that's not your protein. That's your fiber. That's your phytonutrients. That's your antioxidants. It's a different function that serves, and then you separately eat your protein. It's just that low. And then the other thing is that any plant-based protein is incomplete in the sense that it doesn't have all of the amino acids that you need. So like protein it comes in like 20 different flavors, and you need to get all the flavors. You can't make them all on your own. And so if you get an animal protein, it's already complete. It already has all of those 20 different types of amino acids. Whereas say like that's why like the classic pairing is to like put a whole grain with like a legume if you're a vegetarian, because the amino acids you can't get from the grain are in the legume and vice versa.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to say, because I know there's some people watching this that I don't want them to think we're hating on vegetarians. Not
No,
at
I
all.
work with tons of vegetarians. I actually have tons of compassion for them because they have so many health problems, and they can't understand why, and they've been lied to. And if they want to remain vegetarian, it doesn't mean they can't, but they at least should go in eyes wide open in terms of like how to optimize for that and how to supplement for that, because we do a lot of advanced like functional medicine testing and nutrient testing on people. And so I've been able to see under the hood of a lot of vegetarians, and like, it's not pretty. So, it's because it's not that they're not well intentioned, it's that they've been given the wrong information. And so they deserve to hear that there's some optimization that needs to happen. And it doesn't mean that you have to go out and eat a steak, but it means that you probably need to pay attention to what you're doing and like get good information on how to do it right.
Gotcha. I was a vegetarian for about a year and a half.
Yeah. I find that for a lot of people, they do well for like a certain amount of time. It can kind of take a while to catch up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I lost a lot of muscle mass in it for sure.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was trying to balance out, get all the amino acids in, and like you said, if you want to enjoy like that burger, you have to go buy something that's processed and that
Yeah.
is terrible for you. And so then I started introducing meat back, and now I'm back to fully. But
Yeah.
it was just kind of a uh, it was a good experience, for myself, and
Mhm.
um, I got to eat a lot of veggies and things like that, and try new different foods. But
Yeah.
yeah, now
Yeah.
I
Any
love
diet can be, yeah. I mean, there's like vegetarians that don't eat vegetables. So it's like,
it.
what is the quality of your vegetarian diet? And then on the other side of the coin, you have like carnivore diet people where like they just only eat meat. I mean, that's also something that isn't safe. So it's not that any extreme in nutrition is probably going to end badly, I guess if
And
you
isn't that
say.
true in life in general, right? You should always be seeking the middle ground somewhere, so that, if
Yeah.
you're too far on one side. So,
Yeah.
um, so protein quality, what are some great recommendations for people? Like, give me your like top five as far as protein quality for people that are looking.
Yeah. So the most quality protein you can eat is a well-sourced animal protein. So like a wild salmon, a grass-fed beef, an organic chicken. Those would be examples of that. Quality organic eggs. And then if you want a vegetarian source, the best thing you can do is a whole bean soy. So instead of don't eat soy protein isolate, don't eat soy protein powder. It's definitely associated with breast cancer and it's not good for you. But there's good research that some tofu or some tempeh is okay. You just want to make sure you're getting organic because it's one of the most pesticide laden foods that you can buy. I mean, it's just super covered in pesticides. That's why all soy is almost all soy that's not organic is GMO. They're genetically modifying it to withstand that much pesticide. So get organic soy. That's another good option. And then in the world of protein powders, quality is really important. To go to your nearest like muscle shop and find something that's like laced with who knows what and like shady. You want to be sourcing a quality protein powder that also doesn't have organic or added sugars in it. And then to some degree depend on your tolerance in terms of what protein powder you can use. But whey is really the most complete, absorbable, and like readily utilized protein powder. But if you don't tolerate whey, then you can use egg white, you can use a pea protein. but it shouldn't be your predominant source of protein. That's what I would say would be the primary things. And then a common mistake I'll see is people will say, oh, I'm good on protein. Like I eat a lot of peanut butter, or like I eat a lot of beans. I mean, you'd have to
I
eat
don't
like
know who started the peanut butter as a good source of protein.
it's not high in
I would
protein.
like to have a chat with them.
Just put that
You
to
know,
bed.
you know how much time we spend like trying to, you know, inform people that that is not a good protein. I hear that all the
Yeah,
time. They're
I
like,
know.
it's like, look, the fat is almost 2 to 1 on peanut butter.
A dream is a wish that your heart makes.
I know, right, right. But no, it's crazy. I see people also put it out there. Somebody asked the other day on Facebook. They said, "Hey, what's a good protein source?" And all these people were putting peanut butter. And like that is
Yeah.
that's a great fat source. That's
Yeah. You'd
um,
have to eat a ridiculous number of calories to get a significant amount of protein from peanut butter. And then the same goes for really like grains and legumes, except you'd be eating a ridiculous amount of carbohydrate.
on the whey protein. Do you recommend like for people to take like isolate and stuff like that, or do you?
Yeah.
I recommend isolate. I take a hydrolyzed isolate. I don't know what your opinion on that is, where they heat up and it breaks the chain. Um,
The most important thing, first of all, is like the quality of the whey. So like how well sourced is it? And then hydrolyzed is a little better. And then it mostly what they're doing with hydrolyzed, mostly what you're getting though is you're getting improved tolerance. So a lot of people will say, hey, I tried whey. I didn't tolerate it. I don't tolerate
right.
dairy. But if you have a hydrolyzed whey, then you should tolerate it, even if you don't typically tolerate dairy products.
Perfect. And as far as brands, guys, if you guys are interested in like some good brands, Erin, you have a link on your website at empowerednutrition.health, don't you? That under full script.
We actually only let our current clients access our full script because we basically, with our dietitians, will like pair the person with like professional recommendations for it. Or
Right.
if you're in we have a Lead for Life, which you mentioned, which is our
Right.
program for healing your metabolism and achieving healthy weight and sustaining it. In that, you can access we have a Lead for Life supplement protocol that includes some quality protein powders.
Gotcha. Okay. I know full script's great. I like full script because they
Yeah.
only let dietitians on there. So
Yeah, or their healthcare providers, and then the supplements that they curate are all like professional grade, so you can be assured that it's not like laced with creatine and like
right.
have full of heavy metals and stuff like that.
Cool. So yeah, so just become a client of ours, and we can get you the way we can get
Yeah,
you the whey protein. So,
yeah,
um, let's talk about real quick. You mentioned the carnivore diet.
yeah,
I've heard a little bit about it, but educate me on this, and maybe people who
yeah,
don't know a lot about it.
yeah. Basically, the idea of the carnivore diet is that you only eat animal proteins, so they'll have like I had a carnivore client recently where it was like his routine was to have like eggs, just eggs for breakfast, and then he would have a T-bone steak for lunch, and then he would have a T-bone steak for dinner every day.
What was
That's
the
it.
saying you just said a second ago about heart desire? What was that
The
again?
heart wants what it wants.
That's right.
It wants peanut butter, and therefore peanut butter is good
Right.
for your protein. But yeah, so that's it. Or I mean, any animal proteins you can have, but that's the whole diet, is to just have animal proteins, including eggs. There's of course different flavors. Like with nutrition, you'll always find people that try to find an edge by like creating variation on something. So there's different flavors in terms of like, do you allow a little bit of like, well, obviously lard, well, not obviously maybe, but like lard would be tolerated because it's a animal based fat. But the interesting thing about the carnivore diet is actually, and this is also true of the vegan diet, is that people tend to feel better initially on it. Usually people that are seeking out the carnivore diet have some type of health problem that's bothering them. And the carnivore diet is you're not eating any processed food, you're not eating any refined food, and you're not eating probably some of the foods that are triggers for like symptoms that people may have. And so often they will feel better on it at first, and then that makes them where they are like sold on the idea. And I've seen that with veganism actually a lot as well, where it's like, hey, you went from eating fast food 10 times a week to eating like more vegetables and less processed refined fast food. Like, sure, yeah, you probably feel really good at first, but it's more the long game of like the health implications that you get from like having huge gaps in your diet that catch up to you over the long run.
I was going to say, and it sounds like it's the same principles that we hear in exercise. You try to take shortcuts.
Yeah.
The methods that we use. What's so funny, Erin, is a lot of these things that we teach day in, day out, they're not new. It's been out there for years and years. There's science coming out all the time validating it, yet people still want to try
Yeah.
to circumvent the system. And like you said, they feel good for a minute, and then 6 months down the road, they're not feeling good anymore, and now they're regressing. And
Yeah.
then they'll come to somebody like you or myself and say, hey, I've been doing this for several years now. I'll find this trend. I'll feel good for a bit, lose a little bit of weight, then I put it right back on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think it all comes down to, like we say, moderation of things, having a good, healthy relationship with food,
Yeah.
having a good, healthy diet. And if you don't know how to do that, um, that's what dietitians are for. And as I told a client last week, that just signed up with us and is going to be seeing you, insurance now
Sweet.
is covering dietitian services now. And a
Yeah.
lot of times it's at 100%. So you really have no excuse anymore to not have a dietitian. And two, why would you not want to have a dietitian? That's like having a professional coach
Yeah.
you. So let's end the day, Erin. Let's just talk to people and tell them, what does a typical day look like, for having, getting our protein intake? How should we eat it? How should we space it out? What does that look
Yeah. That's a good question. But first of all, just to quickly circle back on what you said, what I would say is, let me just point, I guess, share one thing is that I think people aren't to blame for trying to grasp at straws and find
right?
something that works because they are desperate. It is that most people are struggling with their weight, they're struggling with their hunger and their cravings. They've tried to do it on their own and they haven't been given a resource that works. And so I
Right.
never blame them for having tried all kinds of crazy stuff because like what else are they supposed to do? They're going to the doctor and being told that like, hey, you're pre-diabetic or you're
Right.
obese and like you're gonna have a heart attack. So like, but then and I blame more like honestly the healthcare industry for not offering better solutions to people.
And
And
two,
so
there's a lot of marketing out there. I mean, those companies that
yes,
sell stuff like that, they're
yes,
spending millions of dollars to get them to purchase their detox and fat burners. And like you
yeah,
said, they put a beautiful presentation together that sells the hope that their
yeah,
problem's going to get fixed.
yeah, that we could keep going. I mean, this could be a whole separate discussion, but I feel like that's capitalism. But I feel like it wouldn't be so successful if people weren't so desperate, if they had a good solution from their healthcare setting and from professional organizations, and they wouldn't be so susceptible to that. But
Right.
I feel like the professional like nutrition bodies have not provided what they should be providing, which is basically to me it's the problem with what we're talking about metabolism is that people are given this idea that it's just a matter of like eating less food, but it's not that. It's that they have metabolic damage caused by the foods they've been given since childhood, and undoing that metabolic damage is what allows their body to start naturally self-regulating, naturally self-weight regulating, appetite self-regulating the way that animals do in the wild. Like humans have that same capacity when we're eating a natural human diet, but that's not something you're ever told. It's eat less, move more from the very top of government guidelines. And so everything that they hear from professional settings is like on the wrong premise. And so no wonder they're confused and like grasping at straws. So I just don't want people to
No,
feel
for
like it's
sure. No,
their
in
fault.
fact, you posted an interesting article. It was research that was talking about the energy balance model.
Yeah.
I would love to
Yeah. Let's
do,
do a talk on that.
we'll do a talk on that. How, like you said, and I got into a discussion with somebody a few weeks ago on social media about this, who, like you said, they had this, oh, they just need to eat less, move more, and we just know that's not the case. That is, if
Yeah.
that is such a low level view, and there's so many different factors that go into this, like you said.
Yeah. Everybody
I
that
think
struggles with their weight has heard that and tried to do that. And that alone is not sustainable because it doesn't fix the underlying problem, which is the machine is broken. The
right.
metabolic machine needs to be fixed and healed, and that's doable. And people just need that support with that.
No, totally. Sorry, I know we got off of topic for a
No, it's
second, but
my
yeah,
fault. You asked me a
no,
question. I was like, I'm
no,
going
no,
to say
no,
something
no.
different.
I really, like I said, I really want to come back and do a talk on that, the energy balance model research that you had
Yeah, we
posted.
should.
So let's talk about and finish off the day with, all right, how do I put this all together, Erin? How do I
Yeah, day to
eat,
day.
eat my protein, spread it out? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's first take your protein goal for the day. So, like I said, if you're like a smaller person and you're pretty sedentary, you can probably as low as 6 times a day. And then for active men, I would say, or if any active, let's just say it this way: for active men or men or women who want to gain lean mass who are exercising, then you should take your weight, your ideal weight. So like you can go Google online, like my ideal weight calculator, ideal body weight calculator, and then what your ideal weight is. Eat at least 1 gram of protein per pound. So my ideal weight by my height is like 115 pounds, which is a joke, but still the math works out that like my minimum then would be 115 grams of protein a day. And then you can go up to, typically for most people, you can go up to 150% of that. And so that's kind of a rough estimate. And so if you kind of think about, so I'm like 5'2", my minimum protein is going to be 115 grams a day. I actually eat about 120 to 130 grams of protein a day, and I strength train like 4 or 5 times a week. So like but obviously you, Andy, you're a lot taller than me. You've got a lot more lean mass than me. You're probably going to be sitting somewhere around like 150 plus grams of protein a day. And then if you're somewhere in between in terms of like, you're just kind of like moderately active, where maybe you aren't as focused on strength training and building muscle, but maybe you're like a larger person, then you might be somewhere around in the neighborhood of 85 grams a day. So when we work with people, we look at their whole picture in terms of like in figuring out exact protein target, but figure out around what protein target you need to hit, and then divide that across your day. So like, let's say you're going to have 3 meals and 2 snacks is a common thing. So then I would say take your protein, divide it into 4 parts, have a quarter of your protein at each meal, and then that last quarter have it across your snacks. And then for the way that I think what a lot of people mess up is they don't even start eating any significant amount of protein until dinner. So like a typical person might be having like oatmeal or cereal at breakfast, or toast or avocado toast. There's very little protein in that meal. And then they'll have a common thing is like a turkey sandwich or like a ham sandwich at lunch, or like even a restaurant salad with like a few little sad pieces of chicken on it. There's very little protein in that situation. And then dinner, they finally have some. That's too little, too late. So it needs to be like at breakfast, you're really having a quarter of your protein for the day. So it could be like eggs or protein powder in a shake. Then at lunch, you're having, again, a quarter of your protein. So maybe it's a quick like tuna salad or an egg salad sandwich, or maybe it's leftovers of like your dinner from the night before. And then dinner is when you're going to have that more traditional, like the piece of chicken, the steak, the piece of salmon type of thing. And then it snacks. It can be things like Greek yogurt, or a good way to go. Or that could be when you maybe have a protein shake or hard-boiled egg, things like that.
Very cool.
And peanut butter. I'm just kidding.
Peanut butter, yeah, peanut butter.
Actually, powdered peanut butter is higher in protein.
Yeah, and it's actually really good too. I like peanut butter,
Yeah.
or the powdered peanut butter. So like you
Yeah.
said, put in a shake or something like that, and it doesn't blast all your calories.
Or oatmeal, if you're really obsessed with oatmeal,
Yeah,
just have half the oatmeal and add peanut butter
perfect.
powder and like some collagen to it.
All right, Erin. So where can people find out some more info if they want some more info?
Yeah, I'm happy to connect. You can set up a free call to chat with us about what you're wanting help with. We can kind of tell you, hey, is this something we can support you with? If you're wanting to use insurance, we can share more details about what networks we're in network with and how that coverage looks. And the best way to set that up is from our website. It's empowered with a D, nutrition.health. Or you can just Google Empowered Nutrition North Carolina and it'll come up. And set up a call with us, or you can just message us on our website what you're looking for and we can get back to you.
Also, we just went live with our website, of course.
Yes, that's right. Tell
And
us about your
so
website.
it's 413healthfitness.com. So there's no and. But also, if you're on our website and you go to click the book a call, Erin's calendar is on that too. So if you don't, if you don't remember her website, you can go to the 413 Health Fitness website. Go ahead and schedule your initial call with her. Shoot us an email over, and we'll go ahead and do your benefits check and all that good stuff for you. So
awesome. Yeah,
well, Erin, thanks
Andy.
for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so fun.
Absolutely. And yeah, we'll schedule something out for next month. I think next month we'll come back. Let's cover the what we just talked about. Let's cover the energy balance model and go into all the factors that affect weight loss. So
yeah, I love it. We're gonna get out of that eat less, move more mindset.
There we go. That sounds great, Erin. We all have a great weekend.
You too. Have a great one.
See you soon. See ya.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.